We had the pleasure of knocking off trip back, but you get some winners, don't you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. My name is Josai, and I'll be on facing bench this morning. First, a few announcements. If you could please turn off your cell phone or put them on airplane mode, that will help with bandwidth. And if you're a visitor with us, first of all, welcome. And we would like to get to know you better. And if you do not yet have a name tag, is a sign-up list on the table for those name tags that are there in the back. As a reminder, the offering plates are in the back of the room, or you can use the online website with giving instructions there. If you brought food to donate, that will be taken during the second hymn, and you are welcome to put donation towards the pantry supplies when the food baskets come around. So our first song is Worship in Song 158, God of Grace and God of Glory. Please stand in body or spirit.
I'll wake up within 4 minutes.
My parents had a magnet at home on the fridge when I was growing up that had a picture of a basset hound puppy with its ears drooping to the ground, surrounded by the words, "I know I'm somebody 'cause God don't make no junk." That simple saying got me through a lot of tough times, and come to find out it was a quote from Ethel Waters, the artist who wrote "His Eye is on the Sparrow." A few years ago, when visiting the Indianapolis Hebrew congregation, I saw a scripture in Hebrew emblazoned on the Jerusalem stone out front from Leviticus 19. "You are holy because I, your God, am holy." In other words, I know you are someone special because God don't make no junk. Linda Lynn's going to come up and give a moment for DEI from the Peace and Social Justice.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the Fairfield Peace and Social Justice Committee as we continue our discussions about the many aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today, we offer thoughts and a call to action about language currently used to discuss immigration. Definitions matter, words and phrases matter, the use of language matters. These are a few quick definitions. An immigrant is a person who leaves one country to settle permanently as a resident in another country. A migrant is a person who moves willingly and temporarily from one country to another or regions within a country for specific endeavors such as employment, education, or business. A refugee is a person who flees their country and goes to another country because they are not safe where they live. The word alien, as defined by the Immigration and Nationality Act, is any person who is not a citizen or a national of the U.S. It includes categories such as immigrants, non-immigrants, and undocumented individuals. Other meanings of alien in the dictionary are extraterrestrials, beings from spaceships, or something strange and unfamiliar. Pairing the words illegal and alien may be technically correct by law, but it leaves out personhood, it reinforces xenophobia, fear of the other. Words are powerful. The illusionary truth effect is believing something to be true if it is repeated often enough. Repetition makes information easier to process, causing it to seem more truthful. And research has shown that the greatest increase in illusionary truth happens when a person hears a statement for the second time. And that second hearing opens a window just a little bit to cause a pause and say, well, maybe that could be true. An increase in belief goes up again when hearing the statement repeated for the 9th time, and after that, the illusionary truth does not decrease as repetition continues. We are bombarded dozens of times daily by demeaning and dehumanizing words, phrases, and outrageous comments about our neighbors. The more often the comments are heard, the more apt people are to believe them. That's the illusionary truth effect. Words can hurt, words can harm. Words used by our president, elected officials, and others describe immigrants as vermin, rapists, invaders, criminals, predators, killers, animals, saying they're stealthy, sneaky, uncontrollable, impure. The phrases and sentences are no better. A tidal wave, a flood, an onslaught, inundation, gang members, illegal monsters, migrant, criminals, an army, snakes that bite. They are stealing jobs, they are eating our pets, they are coming from prisons and jails from third-rate countries whose names we can't even pronounce. They have tremendous AIDS problems. Everyone is let in through the borders like a death wish for our country. Non-humans from S-hole countries like Africa and Haiti, ISIS-affiliated young, strong men, silence of the lambs stuff, and it goes on and on and on. This language is meant to frighten, harm, demonize, and shape public opinion. I want to see if you can hear this. Hear that? Nope. Probably not. Only dogs can hear that frequency on this whistle. In addition to... Did you hear it? There's always one in the group behind you. In addition to slurs and attacks, we are immersed in language which seems ambiguous, but in fact is coded to contain specific beliefs which appeal to certain groups who understand the hidden message. This language, purposely used to mobilize supporters, is referred to as dog whistles. People are groomed to decode and hear the frequencies of exclusion and hate. In his book, Dog Whistle Politics: How Coded Racial Appeals Have Reinvented Racism and Wrecked the Middle Class, Ian Lopez calls these dog whistles a strategic manipulation of racial ideas for the pursuit of power and material wealth. Some innocuous-sounding dog whistles are border security, law and order, safe communities, anchor babies. We are being replaced. Protect our families. Make no mistake, the current attack on immigration and immigrants is about the shifting of ethnic and racial patterns in this country. It is about racism. It is about the browning of America. This is a last gasp to keep this country's population predominantly white and ensure racial purity, regardless of how long a person or their ancestors have lived here. Around the year 2045, it is estimated the non-white population in the U.S. will become a majority. As of 2020, the non-white population outnumbered whites in the age group 18 and under. By 2027, non-whites will also be predominant in ages 18 to 29. It is no accident that J.D. Vance is imploring women to quit jobs, stay home, and have babies. It is no accident that this same message is being preached from evangelical and Christian nationalist pulpits as the patriotic duty of Christian women. How should we as Quakers advocate on behalf of people falsely labeled by our government? We can use language promoting humanity and dignity, model neutral, precise language, using terms like undocumented individuals, people seeking asylum, student visas, and dreamers. We can view all immigrants as neighbors, protect and provide safe harbor to our neighbors when they need it. Visit neighbors in their homes, invite them to our homes. Visit neighbors who are in detention as if we are visiting Christ. Provide solace and stand with neighbors demanding their equal rights, civil rights, and basic human rights. Work for legislation which provides legal, safe, sensible pathways for immigration, asylum, and becoming a citizen. Follow our religious grounding, which teaches that all individuals have the light of God within. Follow our scriptural grounding, which implores us to never miss an opportunity to invite a stranger into our midst, because we might encounter an angel by doing so. Reclaim the words diversity, equity, inclusion. Use them every day. Make them verbs in our lives. Call out to dog whistles, jokes, code talking, and illusionary truths. Sound the alarm. Discuss, educate, share information, especially with young people. Stand up, speak out. Call it out. The codes, the racism, and actions for what they are. Case in point. Unidentified persons with face coverings seizing people at gunpoint without warrants, without reading rights, disappearing them, then claiming they are the worst of illegal aliens. ICE detention equals kidnapping. ICE detention centers are becoming concentration camps with non-existent civil rights, and people housed in cages call it out. Bottom line, who would Jesus kidnap? Who would Jesus cage?
Thank you, Linda. We'll move on to announcements. First, any announcements from Zoom?
Josiah, this is Dinah Geiger. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to tell you that Ellen Blacketer and I are working on the updates for the online directory, and our phone numbers were in the newsletter, and we're going to extend it till next Sunday for you to give us any updates that you need on your information that's in there. If you're not in the directory, or if you don't even know how to access the directory, or if you don't get a newsletter, so get our phone numbers. If you have any other questions or can't get any of that information otherwise, and you would like to be on the newsletter list or in the directory, is Sarah Lookabill there, or Linda Rocher, or somebody, or Randy, that you could give any of them your phone number, or they could give you mine, that we could get you on the newsletter or in the directory. Randy, wave, they know who you are. I can see you, but I can't tell if Sarah or Lynn are there. But if those people would wave their hand in case some people there don't know who these people are, then see one of them afterwards if you don't get the newsletter and you don't have access to our phone numbers in order to get you on those lists. Thank you.
Thanks, Dinah. Any other announcements from Zoom? Okay, we'll move on to some announcements from the meeting house. I have a few announcements. First, from the Peace and Social Justice Committee, we'll host a remembrance for the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the Peace Pole. First on Tuesday, August 5th at 7 p.m. for Hiroshima, and the second on Friday, August 8th at 10 p.m. for Nagasaki. For those that are attending the Friday Remembrance, please bring flashlights and electric candles. It will be dark by that time. Second, the Peace and Social Justice Committee sent out this morning a copy of the statement, "Quakers discern genocide is occurring in Gaza and urge courageous action," to the meeting via email. We would ask for your continued discernment, and we'll be requesting an endorsement from Fairfield Friends of this statement via email. Please find that email that went out to the meeting for more information and some queries for your discernment. Third, I have some printed out copies of the agenda for the December 5th and 6th trip to Amish country, if you're interested in doing that. If I could have interest by August 15th, that will help me with the hotel and in-home meal reservations. Any other announcements from the meeting room?
Hi, this is Sue Walton, and two concerns Scott and I have. One, we sent out an announcement. If you are a Hendricks County resident, please fill out the Hendricks County Community Foundation interest survey. This helps with grants. Debbie Draper and Libby and are all on grant review, and Scott's on the finance committee as volunteers, and they needed, what, 4,000 more people? Yeah, 4 more, and sometimes it doesn't always work with your ISP, because we found out Scott couldn't do his and I could do mine. But please do fill one out. We put the address of the Hendricks County, because that affects how we do can help other people. And then related to that, my colleague Owen and I need to appeal to you for, it isn't just the food, it's money, because there's certain things that food can't buy. It's like pencils are not edible for school and things like that. So we would appreciate cash donations. We don't take credit cards for those yet, but we'll work on that. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and this is Joanne Gulley, and to tag team onto what Sue said, you know, I was at Aldi the other day and just realized, even at Aldi, how much food prices are going up. Even if people are able to still have their SNAP benefits and things like that, there are gaps that we can fill. One thing we want to talk to Annie about after meeting is if there are a need for school supplies for your population. Yeah, so we will get information about that out this week. Switching hats, take off the outreach, put on the book club. Book club discussion is today at the Rise of Meeting. If you brought your lunch, great. If not, you can listen to your stomach growl along with mine. But it's a really good discussion. So ladies, show up and discuss. I think that's it for now.
Hi, this is Sandy Chenoweth from Housekeeping, and we need to remind everyone to be extremely careful when using the kitchen and bringing in food and leaving food. I know everyone thinks they leave it pristine, but Sherry is really fighting the ants and leftover food that I'm sure everybody thinks, oh, somebody wants to take that home, I'll just leave it here on the counter. Well, the ants are the only ones who want to take it home. So if you would, like after your book club, be super diligent. It not only makes a lot more work for Sherry, but this is our place that we want to keep really nice. So thank you.
Let us pray. For all of these things, for all of these concerns, for the contents of our heart, for all of the people laid before us, for the fears we know, the things that scare us, for all of our life, for the ones we love, the ones who save us, the ones who guide us. We bring it all to you, O God. And we ask your blessing, your presence, and that you would receive our thanks. Amen. Here we go. Let me tell you about my grandson. I have permission to tell this story. He's now 6 foot and learning to drive, which I'm not in favor of, but that doesn't matter. But when he was little, his great-grandmother died. And the word went out, and my son from Ohio came over, and I went to the funeral. a Catholic funeral in this big Catholic church in Jay County. Trinity, if any of you know Jay County, is huge, huge church. And so Ed came over and I went and represented our concern. Now, when all the things, the Catholic things, indoor Catholic things were done, we all processed out to the churchyard, to the cemetery, to do the outdoor Catholic things. And whereas inside the church, there was sort of a strict arrangement of where you sat. You know, there was the family, big Catholic family. There were the pallbearers. There were the rosary reciters. And back in the cheap seats were the heathens and people who didn't belong. That's where we sat. And when we came outside, though, those divisions sort of evaporated. So Ike was able to come over and stand by me. However, standing by me, he was in a position where all he could see of what the priest was doing up by the casket was a bunch of Catholic backsides. So I picked him up. So he could see the holy water, and he could see the incense, and he could see what was happening, and it was really pretty colorful, so he was pretty interested. And he was small enough I could hold him. When it got to the end of the graveside rite, the priest started to say, "In the name of the Father," and everybody's hand went up. You know how that works. "In the name of the Father," and everybody goes into motions. Well, Ike did too. The little Quaker boy. His hand went up like this, and the next thing he did was, I didn't drop him. I want credit for that. And I've been thinking about that ever since that little kid did that. That's not a bad attitude for Quakers to have. Not only am I watching you, but I see you. I see what's going on. I'm looking for what's going on. So let me tell you how I start my day. I'm sure you're just really interested. I feed the cat, because there's no such thing as a snooze alarm on a hungry cat. I feed the birds, I drink my coffee, I sit and watch the birds till I can't do it anymore. And for the longest time, I used to read what other people had to say. Poets, authors, spiritual people. And then I encountered the poet Padraig Otuma, who said, "You know, at some point you ought to think your own thoughts." Oh my. You should think your own thoughts. And in that process, I remember the story of Matthew 21:28. There's all sorts of controversy going on, and there's all sorts of things happening. The entry into Jerusalem, the turning over the tables, and all that stuff, and more going on. But finally, Jesus faces his opponents and says, this is a very simple thing. He faces his opponents and he says, what do you think? Now, what did you feel? What did you believe? What do you think? There was a man who had 2 sons. He said to the one son, go into the vineyard and work. And the son said, okay. And he didn't go. He said to the other son, go into the vineyard and work. And that son said, no way. But later on, he felt bad about it. And he went out and worked. Softball question now. I mean, this is not hard, right? Which of the 2 sons did the will of his father? Duh. Think on that. I will be honest, I struggled with what to say today. I had a real tough time, and then I had a last-minute infusion of genius. Infusion means it didn't come from me. My dearest said, talk about hope in the darkness. Talk about hope in the darkness, because there's plenty of darkness. As I sit there with my thoughts, drinking my coffee, and occasionally, this is a mistake, glance at the news on my phone, I see Gaza. There's other places you could see that are just as bad or are bad. But look at Gaza. And how can that not break your heart? People being starved to death willingly. It's time to open our eyes. It's time to do what we can. When goodness is offered to us, we should take it, because we live in dark days, and we need to have trust and faith and hope. When goodness is offered to us, we should take it. When we see that goodness is needed, I'll say that again, because when we see that goodness is needed, we should give it. I saw the ear guy a week or so ago, and he turned up the volume on my hearing aids. I heard that. Wouldn't it be great if we could have our senses turned up a bit? So that we might see. We might look for goodness and take it. We might see where need is and give it.
I'd like to add to what I'm grateful that you said about when you about goodness. One of the things that I experienced this week, I would add to say, when goodness is presented to you, receive it. My husband's gone to visit kids in the West, and I've been home eating stuff and doing stuff and just playing, right? So I was in a restaurant in town, and the table next to me was a couple, and they hadn't been out much, and they'd been through a lot, and they were speaking, and I made a statement, an encouraging statement, and then we engaged, and they left, and they were going to tour Brown County. And so when I was leaving and asked for my bill, the waitress said, "They paid your bill." I thought, dang. So it's like, and I had a lot of, it was a warm fuzzy and whatever, and they weren't there, and I wasn't embarrassed, and I was just grateful. So yesterday, I go to the dollar store that's near me and buy the essentials like, ice cream sandwiches and some paint and something else that's really frivolous. And I had so many things, it was like $27 worth of stuff that I needed, right? So I go to the stand, to pay, and it says, cash only. I don't carry cash because I'll spend it more than I will when I write my name. So I said, oh, shoot. And so a woman who had just paid for hers came up to me, and she looked like it was a struggle for her to even buy what she bought. And she said, I was in here last week, and I didn't have any money. I didn't realize I didn't have any money. And the store clerk paid for mine. She said, so I'm going to pay for yours. I'm like, huh? I said, oh, no, it's not, it's not necessary, da-da-da-da. And she said, oh, yes, it is. And so there's like 3 or 4 people behind me. I said, oh, no. I said, none of this is essential. I said, it's ice cream. She said, ice cream is essential. And I said, oh, no, because I'm like taken by not wanting to take. And to prove that I'm worthy to pay for my groceries, I said, I've got some money, right? I tried to barter. I said, well, what do you want to do? She said, I want to pay for your groceries. And the cashier saying, take the money. And then there's people behind me. One man said, just take the grace. Just take the grace. I was like, okay, I got to leave here so I can go home and cry. So I took my little ice cream out, because I had 2 things of ice cream, right? And so as I go to my car, one of the men said, take the grace. You're the instigators. You like ice cream? He said, yeah. I said, take one of these. I'll feel better. He said, I'll take the ice cream. All this to say that we are goodness, and goodness is there. And we, in the one voice, in the oneness, if the goodness comes, take it. Yeah.
If all hearts and minds are clear, I will ask if we could have a couple of helpers, maybe for the baskets, to collect food. And we'll stand in body or spirit to sing and worship and song 271, Simple Gifts.
Something good comes your way, what do you do?
Take it.
When you see the need for good, what do you do? Turn and greet your neighbor.